What's going on, guys? Mike Lesby here for Full Circuit Training. Going to go over a basic body weight squat, also known as the air squat in some circles. So we're going to go over kind of some key pointers here, or some things you want to really focus on and emphasize while you're doing the squat. They are, you want to maintain an upright torso by really bracing your midsection or your core. Okay, that's going to be very, very important, especially once you add a load to it, whether it's a bar, a medicine ball, kettlebell, something like that. But you want to start really thinking about that with no added weight, with just your body weight. So like I said, brace that midsection, keep that chest nice and upright. That will help everything else. That will help you do everything else you want to be doing on a squat as well. For example, keeping your weight on your heels is going to be largely helped by keeping that chest nice and upright. The more your chest dips, the more your weight wants to shift forward to the toes, and it's hard to keep those heels planted. That's what you want to think. Heels planted, driving through the heels to generate that force. Okay? One thing that will also help that is by braking simultaneously at your knees and hips. So real quick, I'm going to show you what I mean by that. We're going to go do a demonstration here in a minute, but I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So when I brake at just the knees, that means I'm just bending the knees first. Okay? See how the knees shift forward, not a good position. It's going to cause that chest to collapse. So I'm going to simultaneously push the hips back and bend the knees. Okay? Notice how I'm also driving the knees out as soon as I start that. Okay? So driving the knees out, sitting the hips back, keeping the weight on the heels, so braking at the knees and hips. So when I say braking, I'm referring to flexing the knees and the hips at the same time, as opposed to a hinge pattern where you're just braking at the hips. You want to be doing both, keeping that chest nice and upright, nice arch in the lower back, once again bracing that midsection. Okay? You want to think about externally rotating the femur by driving your knees out. You want to think about screwing your heel into the ground. So come a little bit closer here, Jake. So what I'm referring to is literally screwing your heel into the ground, but without letting your foot actually move. So screwing the heel into the ground to externally rotate the femur. You're engaging your abductors, your glute medius in particular. It's going to help really stabilize the knees and better allow you to use your hips on the ascent. Okay, so knees go out as I descend. So once again, screwing the heel into the ground to drive the knees out, keeping those knees nice and stable, helping to engage those abductors. Okay. The breathing is also very important on this and any other exercise for that matter. So the breathing for this, you want to breathe at the top or while you are descending. Then you will hold that breath in your belly. Think about expanding your belly, creating more pressure. You'll exhale at the top of the rep or during the ascent. Okay, so breath at the top, or breath while I'm descending, and then exhale as I'm getting to the top of the ascension. Okay? A good way to make sure you're breathing correctly without having to think about it too much is count your reps, because what do you have to do when you say the rep? You have to exhale, right? So 1, 2. That will force you to breathe without having to think about it. Make sure you're not holding your breath. Definitely an exercise you do not want to hold your breath on. Okay? You want to also think about fully extending your hips by engaging your glutes at the top. This goes back to that neutral spine position I talked about before. You want to think about full extension of the hips by really engaging the glutes and punching the hips forward, not hyperextending. Okay? That means your belly's probably not tight, and you don't want your chest going backwards. You want to think about getting tall. Okay? Go up, not backwards. Fully extending, abs are tight. There's no flexion in the hips. There's no extension in the back. Okay? As I come up, I'm really thinking about squeezing the glutes, keeping the abs tight. Everything's engaged, keeping that neutral spine position at the top. Okay? So now I'm going to kind of go over it a little bit more so. I'm going to give you some example reps. So scoot back there a little bit for me, Jake. Okay, so I'm going to do about 10 in a row, just from 5 from the front and then 5 from the side, just so you know what we're talking about. Okay? So chest is upright. I'm going to break at the knees and the hips simultaneously. For an air squat, there's a couple things you can do with your arms. You can keep them at your chest, make it a little bit harder to keep the chest up by doing what's called a prisoner squat, hands on the back of the head. Or the one that I typically use with clients is arms go up to kind of counterbalance, keep that chest upright, and stand, engage the glutes, driving the knees out as I go down, keeping the weight on the heels, like so. Now let's go over depth. We'll do that from the side view. Depending on your level of strength and mobility and also your knee health, that will sort of largely determine how low you can get. Another thing that's going to determine that is the mobility of your lower back. So for example, I have the mobility. I can get to a very, very deep squat while maintaining